That's how long they kept Michael Thompson in a cage for something he never did. No anger management classes helped. No chaplain's prayers landed soft enough. No amount of staring at a concrete ceiling at 2 a.m. made the betrayal hurt any less. But today, the cage opens. And the man walking out of Beaumont Federal Correctional Institution in Beaumont, Texas, is not the same man who walked in. That man was forgiving. This one isn't. The morning of March 14, 2024, started the way most significant days in my life did badly. The fluorescent light above my bunk had been flickering for 3 days straight, and the correctional officer assigned to my release processing, a heavy-set man with mustard on his collar at 6 a.m., moved like he was being paid by the hour and had already earned overtime. Thompson Michael, 47. Release date today. He didn't look up from his clipboard. "That's me," I said. "Unless someone else wants the job." He didn't laugh. Nobody in Beaumont laughs before 8. They gave me back a brown paper bag containing my wallet, my wedding ring, which I still wore out of habit and stubbornness, and something I refused to name, $63 in cash, and a gray t-shirt I didn't recognize. I put everything in my pockets except the shirt. I drew the line somewhere. The gates opened at 7:42 a.m. I stood there for a moment, just breathing. Free air actually smells different. I don't care how poetic that sounds. It does. It smells like exhaust fumes and fast food grease, and the particular sweetness of a Texas morning, and every single molecule of it tasted like vindication I hadn't earned yet, but was already planning on collecting. I didn't know what was waiting for me on the other side of that parking lot. If I had, I would have walked slower, savored the last few seconds of simplicity. Kyle Murphy was leaning against a beat-up Ford F-150, the color of old pennies, arms crossed, wearing a Houston Texans cap that had seen better decades. Kyle was the kind of man who showed up. That was his whole personality, and honestly, it was enough. We'd been friends since 1987, back when we were both broke electricians working the same job sites in the 5th Ward. Now, I need you to understand something about Kyle Murphy. The man had called me Michael exactly twice in 37 years. Once at my mother's funeral, and once when he thought I was having a heart attack on a job site in 1999. Every other moment of our entire friendship, I was Mike. Just Mike. It didn't matter if we were in church, in court, or apparently standing outside a federal prison. To Kyle Murphy, I was always Mike. And that single syllable carried more warmth than most people manage with a whole paragraph. He didn't say anything when I walked toward him, just uncrossed his arms and held one out. We shook hands, then he pulled me in. "You look terrible," he said, clapping my back hard. "I spent 2 years in Beaumont, Kyle." "Still?" He pulled back and looked at me with that straight, no-nonsense face of his. "You eat, Mike?" We got into the truck. He had a paper bag from Whataburger on the back seat and a large black coffee in the cup holder with my name written on it in Sharpie, not printed, handwritten. Mike, all caps, like he'd written it 100 times before and would write it 100 times more. That nearly broke me more than anything that happened inside those walls. I picked it up and held it with both hands and didn't say a word for a full minute. Kyle let the silence breathe. That was another thing about him. He never filled silence with noise just to feel comfortable. He just drove, one hand on the wheel, Texans cap low, letting me have whatever I needed to have. "Then Benjamin called me," he said carefully, eyes fixed on Highway 96, stretching out ahead of us. There it was, the name sitting in the air between us like a lit match. When my voice was even, I'd even practiced. "Yesterday, I wanted to know if I knew what time you were getting out." Kyle glanced at me sideways. I told him I didn't know. "But you did know." "I did know." He nodded once. I told him I didn't. I looked out the window at the flat Texas landscape rolling past. Pine trees and gas stations and the particular brand of nowhere that makes up most of Beaumont. 24 months, and my own son couldn't drive the 2 hours from Houston himself. I sent a phone call through my best friend instead. "Does he say anything else?" I asked. Kyle was quiet for a beat too long. "Kyle, he's in trouble, Mike." He exhaled slowly, like a man releasing something heavy. "Real trouble. Business is gone. The Midtown office, the whole development company, filed Chapter 7 in November. Lost the River Oaks house in January. Ella left him sometime around Christmas from what I heard." He paused. "He's staying in a rental in Pearland, the cheap end." "Good," said the part of me I wasn't proud of. I didn't say it out loud. I wasn't that far gone yet. "What does he want from me, Kyle?" "Mike, what does he want?" Kyle reached into the back seat with one hand, keeping his eyes forward, and dropped a manila envelope on my lap, thick, legal-sized. My name was written on the front in handwriting I recognized immediately. The deliberate, slightly overcorrected cursive a man who learned to write left-handed after breaking his right wrist at 14. Benjamin's handwriting. I stared at it. "He mailed that to my house 3 weeks ago," Kyle said. "Asked me to give it to you today. First thing, I didn't open it. Not yet." I set it on the dashboard and ate my Whataburger in silence and watched Texas slide past the window and thought about the last time I saw my son's face across a courtroom in Harris County, watching me get led away in handcuffs. His expression arranged into something that was supposed to look like grief, but landed closer to relief. I'd replayed that expression 11,000 times in 2 years. I finally understood it now. Lucy Stewart was waiting at Kyle's house on Beechnut Street in Westbury when we arrived, a modest neighborhood of oak trees and aging ranch homes in southwest Houston. Lucy was Kyle's neighbor of 15 years and, more relevantly, a paralegal at Murray and Associates downtown, with a mind like a steel trap and zero patience for nonsense. She was sitting on the porch steps with a laptop open and illegal pad on her knee, and she stood up when she saw me. "Michael." She hugged me briefly, professionally. Lucy wasn't a hugger. The fact that she tried told me everything about how serious this moment was. "Sit down. We need to talk before you open that envelope. You know what's in it?" She and Kyle exchanged a look. Kyle showed me a copy. She said, "Benjamin sent one to you and filed one with a probate court in Harris County 4 days before your release." She sat back down and turned her laptop toward me. "Michael, Benjamin named you sole beneficiary of his entire estate. Every asset, the business holdings, the property portfolio, the investment accounts, all of it. 2 years ago, right around the time she stopped, right around the time he sent me to prison, I finished silence. So that was the game. The guilt was real. I believed that much." Benjamin Thompson had looked at what he'd done at the man he buried alive to protect himself. And somewhere in that hollow chest of his, something flinched. So he'd signed a document, wrote my name on his life like an apology note he never intended to deliver because he never thought he'd have to. He thought the business would survive, the marriage would hold, the lie would keep. None of it kept. And now I was holding the deed to the ruins. "There's something else," Lucy said quietly. She turned a page on her legal pad. "I've been doing some digging about Ella, about the miscarriage." She looked at me steadily. "Michael, the hospital records from St. Luke's in the medical center, March 2022. I got them through a contact." She paused. "Ella's OB noted acute stress and physical trauma consistent with a fall. There were also traces of," she glanced at Kyle. "Say it, Lucy." I said, "cocaine in Ella's system. Secondhand exposure. The notes suggest someone in her immediate environment." She closed the laptop slowly. "It wasn't you, Michael. It was never you. And somewhere in that rental in Pearland, Benjamin Thompson knows exactly whose fault it was." Kyle hadn't said a word through any of it. I looked over at him. He was staring at the porch floor, jaw tight, turning his Texans cap over and over in his hands the way he did when he was holding back something he didn't trust himself to say out loud. "Kyle," I said, He looked up. Say it. He stopped, started again. I watched them take you, Mike. I sat in that courtroom and I watched your own son point his finger at you and I didn't. His voice caught. I should have dug harder before the verdict. I should have. You're here now, I said. He nodded. He put the cap back on, pulled the brim down low. That was the end of that conversation. I didn't know yet what I was going to do with any of this. The envelope, the records, the ruins of a son who burned his father to the ground to hide his own fire. But I knew one thing with the cold, absolute certainty of a man who'd had 2 years to think. Benjamin Thompson was going to need something from me. And for the first time in 24 months, 3 weeks and 4 days, I held all the cards. I sat in silence. Not the comfortable kind, not the peaceful kind. The kind that sits on your chest like a man who isn't planning on moving anytime soon. I'd been sitting in that silence on Kyle's porch in Westbury for a good 20 minutes, holding a manila envelope that contained the legal skeleton of my son's collapsed life. When Lucy's phone buzzed on the porch railing, she looked at the screen. Then she looked at me. Michael, don't tell me he's at the end of the street. Of course he was. Benjamin Thompson always had terrible timing. As a boy, he'd walk into a room 30 seconds after the conversation ended and spend the next hour asking questions nobody wanted to answer anymore. Some things apparently don't change with age. Here he was, a grown man of 31, pulling up to the wrong address at the wrong moment on what was already the most loaded day of my life. I stood up slowly, set the envelope on the porch chair, rolled my neck once, the way I used to before a long shift on a job site when I knew the day was going to demand everything I had. Mike Kyle was already on his feet. You want me to... I'm just saying sit down. He sat. Lucy closed her laptop without being asked. I didn't know, standing there on that porch, that the next 40 minutes would change the entire architecture of what I was planning. I thought I was ready. I thought 2 years of rehearsing this moment in a concrete cell had prepared me for whatever Benjamin Thompson was going to walk up that driveway carrying. I was wrong about that. He looked terrible. I want to be honest about that because I refuse to be the kind of man who pretends not to notice things. Benjamin Thompson, my son, my blood. The boy I taught to ride a bike in the parking lot of a Kroger on Westmer in 1998. Looked like someone had taken the man I remembered and left him out in the rain for 2 years. He was thinner, not lean, depleted. The kind of thing that comes from skipping meals, not because you're busy, but because you've forgotten to care. His hair needed cutting. His jacket was the expensive kind that looks cheap when the man wearing it has stopped believing he deserves it. He stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. We looked at each other. 24 months, 3 weeks, and 4 days of imagining this moment, and neither one of us said a single word for what felt like an entire geological era. Then, Dad, one word, and the way he said it, quiet, cracked at the edges like a door that hadn't been opened in too long, did something to my chest that I absolutely refused to honor with a reaction. Benjamin, I said, not Ben, not son, Benjamin. Full name, full stop. I watched him register it. I watched the small flinch move across his face like a cloud shadow crossing flat ground. Can I? He gestured vaguely at the steps. Can I come up? Just barely. He came up and stood on the porch and looked at Kyle, who looked back at him with the particular expression of a man who has been your friend's friend his whole life and has now firmly and irrevocably chosen a side. Benjamin looked at Lucy. Lucy looked at her closed laptop. He looked back at me. You look good, he said. Don't do that, I said. Benjamin, don't. He stopped, swallowed, nodded once. Good. At least he still knew when he'd said something stupid. We went inside. Kyle's living room was the same it had always been. Mismatched furniture, a flat screen that was too big for the wall. It was on a Houston Texans throw a blanket over the couch arm that had been there since at least 2015. Lucy sat in the armchair by the window with her legal pad. Kyle stood in the kitchen doorway with his arms crossed and a look on his face that said he was staying in this room whether anyone invited him or not. Benjamin sat on the edge of the couch like he was afraid it might swallow him. I sat across from him in the wooden chair Kyle used for watching games. I didn't lean back. I didn't get comfortable. I wanted him to feel every inch of the distance between us. "You got my envelope?" He said. "I got your envelope, then you know. I know what's in it." "Yes." I laced my fingers together on my knee. "What I don't know is why." He rubbed his face with both hands. "Dad, why Benjamin?" The room was very quiet. Outside, a lawnmower started up somewhere on Beechnut Street, droning pleasantly, completely indifferent to the implosion happening inside this house. "I panicked," he said finally. 2 years ago, when everything started falling apart with the business, I panicked and I thought if something happened to me, if it all collapsed, you'd at least have he stopped. I thought it was the right thing to do. You thought naming me beneficiary of an estate you built on a lie was the right thing to do." He flinched hard. "Good. I need your help, Dad." He set it to the floor. "The estate? What's left of it? There are creditors. 3 of them are threatening litigation. If you sign over the remaining property holdings back to me, I can use them as leverage to negotiate a settlement and potentially restructure." "So that's what this is?" I said it quietly, dangerously quietly. "You drove here to the house of the man who has not spoken to you in 2 years. On the day I walked out of a prison you put me in to ask me to sign something." "Dad, I'm not finished." I leaned forward. "You framed me, Benjamin. You stood in a courtroom in Harris County and you pointed your finger at me and you told a judge and 12 strangers that I was responsible for Ella losing that baby. You looked me in the eye and you lied and they believed you, and I went to Beaumont." I paused. "So before you say another word about property holdings and creditor negotiations, I need you to sit there and understand that I know everything. Everything." The color drained from his face like someone had pulled a plug. "What do you mean you know?" "St. Luke's Medical Center," Lucy said from the armchair, not looking up. "March 2022, Ella's OB report. Secondhand cocaine exposure. Acute physical trauma consistent with a fall in the home." She turned the page on her legal pad. "The fall that caused the miscarriage. The cocaine in the environment that nobody disclosed to the court." Benjamin's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. I had imagined this moment so many times. The moment he realized the walls had come down. In my imagination, I'd felt triumphant, righteous. Some versions are satisfied. What I actually felt looking at my son sitting there with his face crumbling and his hand shaking on his knees was something far more complicated and far more exhausting than triumph. But I didn't let him see that. "Dad?" His voice broke. "She was Ella and I were in a bad place. I was using. I wasn't. I didn't mean for any of it to, but it happened." I said, and instead of standing up and owning it, "You handed them my name." I was scared. So was I. My voice was perfectly level. I was scared every single day for 70 and something days in a federal facility in Beaumont, Texas. But here I am. I sat back still standing. Maybe he didn't have the energy. Maybe some part of him understood he hadn't earned the right to manage his own dignity in this room today. Kyle from the kitchen doorway made a sound in the back of his throat. I didn't look at him. I knew if I looked at Kyle right now, I'd see something on his face that would soften me. And I couldn't afford to be soft. Not yet. "I'm not signing anything today," I said. Benjamin looked up. "I'm not saying never. I'm saying not today. Not like this." I stood up, which ended the conversation as far as I was concerned. "You're going to leave me your contact information with Lucy. You're going to go back to Parland or wherever you're sleeping tonight, and you're going to wait." "Wait for what?" His voice was small, younger than his 31 years. That killed me a little, and I absolutely did not show it for me to decide what I want to do with everything you handed me. I walked to the front door and opened it. You gave me your estate, Benjamin. You gave me the evidence. You gave me every card in this game. I looked at him steadily. The least you can do is give me a few days to figure out how to play them. Up close, I could see how much older he looked. Good, said the part of me that hadn't forgiven him. I hope every single day of those 2 years showed up on your face. Up close, I could also see something else. Something behind the desperation and the shame. Something that looked, despite everything, like my son, the boy from the Kroger parking lot, the kid who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during long drives. I looked away. Dad, he said quietly, I'm sorry. I know you are, I said. I did not say it's okay. I did not say I forgive you. I held the door open and I waited, and eventually he walked through it and down the porch steps and back to whatever economy car he was driving now, because the Range Rover was long gone with everything else. I watched him pull away. Kyle appeared at my shoulder, handed me a fresh coffee, said nothing. I didn't know then what I know now. That Benjamin Thompson, in his desperation, had left something out of that conversation, something important. Something that would change every calculation I'd been making since the moment Lucy read me that OB report. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, I was just a man standing on a porch in Westbury, Houston, holding a warm cup of coffee with his name on it. Mike still standing. They picture the confrontation, the speech. The moment the villain finally hears every truth you've been storing in your chest like ammunition for 2 years, fired point blank, watched landing. They picture you standing over the wreckage, righteous and clean, while the other person crumbles dramatically at your feet. That's not how I did it. I did it the way I used to do electrical work in the old days. Quietly, methodically behind walls where nobody could see. You don't announce a rewiring. You don't make a speech about it. You just cut the right wire, connect the right circuit, and walk away. And eventually, when someone flips the switch, the whole system either lights up or burns down. I already knew which one this was going to be. The next day started with coffee and Lucy Stewart's legal pad. She was back on Kyle's porch at 7:00 a.m., which told me she hadn't slept much. Her laptop was already open, and she had 2 fresh highlighters uncapped beside her like surgical instruments. Kyle was inside making breakfast, the smell of bacon drifting through the screen door, the faint sound of a sports radio segment he wasn't really listening to filling the kitchen. I sat across from Lucy with my coffee. Mike, same Sharpie. Kyle never missed and waited. I've been thinking about the estate documents all night, she said without preamble. Lucy Stewart did not do small talk before 10, specifically about what Benjamin didn't tell you yesterday. It wasn't a question. I'd felt it standing at that door watching him walk away. The particular incompleteness of a story told by a desperate man who is still, even in his desperation, managing information. The creditors he mentioned. Lucy turned her laptop toward me. 3 of them are threatening litigation. What he didn't say is that one of those creditors is a man named Douglas Hale, commercial real estate investor out of the Woodlands. Benjamin borrowed $400,000 from Hale in 22. Private loan outside the business personal guarantee. That loan is now 14 months past due. She paused. Hale filed a civil suit against Benjamin personally last month. The hearing is in 11 days. I looked at the screen. Court filing. Benjamin Thompson, defendant. Douglas Hale, plaintiff. Harris County Civil Court. If Hale wins, Lucy continued, and he will win, the judgment would attach to any asset Benjamin controls or has a legitimate claim to, including assets he's named me beneficiary of. I said slowly. Exactly. She closed the laptop halfway. Benjamin came here yesterday to get you to sign those holdings back to him before the Hale judgment lands. Because once that judgment drops, any asset he controls gets seized. But assets you control, as the named beneficiary, are outside Hale's reach. She looked at me steadily. He wasn't trying to save his estate, Michael. He was trying to hide it inside yours. The bacon smell coming through the screen door suddenly seemed almost funny. My son, my own son, came to me on the day I walk out of the prison he put me in. Not to apologize, not to make anything right, but to use me as a hiding place for the last few crumbs of a life he'd already eaten through. The audacity of it was almost architectural. You had to respect the structure even while you were demolishing it. Almost. "There's more," Lucy said. "Of course there is. The remaining assets in the estate." She flipped a page on her legal pad. "After the business collapse and the River Oaks property loss, what's actually left is mostly one thing: a commercial property on Westimer, a mixed-use building Benjamin bought in 2021. It's mortgaged, but it has equity, roughly $280,000 of it." She looked up. "As sole beneficiary, you have legal standing to petition for early transfer of that asset, given Benjamin's demonstrated financial instability." Lucy tapped her pen on the pad. "I've already drafted the petition." Kyle appeared in the screen doorway, spatula in hand, listening in that quiet way of his that pretended to be accidental. I looked at the drafted petition Lucy slid across the porch table toward me. "How long does the transfer take?" I asked. "If we file today, 7 to n business days. The Hale hearing is at 11. She let that number sit in the air between us. You'd have the asset transferred and legally yours before Benjamin has anything left to negotiate with in that courtroom." I picked up the petition, read it carefully, set it back down. I thought about Benjamin on that porch yesterday, the depleted look of him, the cracked, quiet way he'd said, "Dad." I thought about the Kroger parking lot and the bike and the boy who used to fall asleep on my shoulder. Then I picked up Lucy's pen and I signed the petition on the line she'd already marked with a small yellow arrow sticker. Methodical, clean, no speech. Lucy filed it at 9:47 a.m. at the Harris County Courthouse downtown. Kyle drove. I sat in the passenger seat and watched Houston slide past the window. The city I'd lived in for 30 years. The city that had watched a courtroom strip my name of everything it meant, looking exactly the same as it always had, indifferent and enormous and beautiful in that flat Texas way. "How do you feel?" Kyle asked. Because Kyle Murphy asked questions like that and never apologized for it. "Hungry," I said. He laughed short and real. "Mike, I was already developing a post-incarceration dependency, and I wasn't remotely interested in addressing it." The next 9 days were quiet. That was the part nobody tells you about cold revenge. The waiting, the maintenance of ordinary life while the machinery runs silently in the background. I stayed at Kyle's. I helped him fix a busted fence panel in his backyard on the second day because I needed to do something with my hands. I called an old contact at an electrical contracting firm in the Galleria area about consulting work on the 4th day. On the 6th day, I drove myself to the barbershop on Bissonnette that I'd been going to since 2003 and got a proper haircut and sat in that chair and felt for the first time in over 2 years like a man who had somewhere to be and something to become. Benjamin called Lucy twice during those 9 days. She answered both times professionally and told him the paperwork was being processed and that Michael Thompson would be in touch when he was ready. She did not mention what paperwork. He assumed it was related to the beneficiary documents. He assumed wrong. On the morning of March 24th, day 10, Lucy called me. "It's done," she said. "Transfer confirmed. The Westimer property is yours, Michael. Deed recorded this morning. I was standing in Kyle's backyard with a cup of coffee, watching a cardinal sit on the fence post we'd fixed 8 days ago, doing absolutely nothing useful except being red and alive in the morning light. "Thank you, Lucy," I said. "The Hale hearing is tomorrow," she said. "I know." "Are you going?" Was I going? I thought about that for a moment. Thought about sitting in another courtroom in Harris County, watching another proceeding dismantle another version of Benjamin Thompson's life. I thought about whether I needed to be in that room to feel the completion of it. No, I said I'm not going. I found out what happened the way I found out most things that week through Lucy, who'd had a contact present. Benjamin Thompson arrived at Harris County Civil Court on the morning of March 25, 2024, with a lawyer he clearly couldn't fully afford and a strategy built entirely around leveraging the Westmer property equity as a negotiating instrument against Douglas Hale's judgment. The lawyer presented the asset. The court pulled the current deed record. The Westmer property was registered to one Michael Raymond Thompson effective March 24, 2024. Benjamin, by all accounts, went very still. The lawyer asked for a recess. The recess was granted. During the recess, Benjamin apparently tried to call me 4 times. I was at a diner on Kirby Drive eating eggs and reading a newspaper, an actual physical newspaper. One of the small pleasures 2 years of deprivation had renewed my appreciation for, and I watched his name light up my phone screen 4 times and I let it ring. Not out of cruelty. I want to be clear about that. There was no satisfaction in the ringing phone. There was only the quiet, settled feeling of a man who has done what needed doing and has nothing left to prove to anyone in that particular area. Code without the Westmer equity. Benjamin had nothing to negotiate with Douglas Hale's judgment landed in full. Every remaining asset Benjamin Thompson personally controlled was subject to seizure. The parlent rental he could keep. They can't take your residence below a certain threshold in Texas. And whoever arranged that provision in state law clearly anticipated situations exactly like this one. But everything else gone. He walked out of that courtroom with a lawyer he couldn't pay, a judgment he couldn't meet, and a phone call that had gone to voicemail 4 times, completely alone. 3 days later, on the morning of March 28th, I drove to the Westmer property myself for the first time. It was a decent building. 2 retail units on the ground floor, 1 vacant, 1 occupied by a dry cleaner who had no idea his landlord had just changed, and 4 residential units above. Brick facade needed work on the exterior drainage. The kind of building a man who actually knows how circuits and structures work could see the bones clearly. Good bones, I thought. Standing on the sidewalk with my hands in my jacket pockets, looking up at it in the thin Houston morning light. Everything good starts with good bones. I didn't go inside that day. I just stood there for a while. Then I walked back to my car, a 2019 Chevy I'd bought 2 days earlier with the first installment from the consulting contract. And I drove back toward Westbury, and I thought about electrical work and fair wages and what it feels like to build something that actually belongs to you. On the seat beside me was a single envelope. Inside it was a document Lucy had prepared at my specific request. Not the petition, not the deed transfer, not anything legal or binding. Just a letter, 2 paragraphs, my signature at the bottom. I'd had Kyle drop it at the parlent rental the evening before. It said 2 things. The first was that I had no intention of using St. Luke's records against Benjamin publicly. That what those documents contained was between him and whatever remained of his conscience, and that I was not in the business of destroying men who had already destroyed themselves. The second was that the Westmer property was mine, and I intended to keep it, and that if Benjamin Thompson ever wanted to have a conversation, a real one, with no envelopes and no agendas and no documents to sign, he knew where to find Kyle Murphy's house on Beechnut Street. Not an olive branch, not forgiveness, just a door left slightly open because I was 57 years old and tired of sealed rooms. Whether he ever walked through it was entirely his problem. I turned onto the highway and let Houston open up around me, wide and flat and full of the particular noise of a city that doesn't stop for anyone's grief or anyone's victory. And I drove with the window down and the March air coming in fast and cool. And I didn't think about Benjamin Thompson at all. I thought about the cardinal on the fence post, red and alive in the morning light, still standing. Thanks for watching my video. Like and subscribe my channel.